Yo, what's up, friends? Welcome back to Angel in Tech. I know it's been a minute, almost a month since I've posted a video. Today we're going to be doing episode 6, continuing our Python interview coding questions. We're going to be using the Titanic dataset to be answering some data science questions, some data analysis, and some graphical questions. So we're going to be doing that. Follow the GitHub so that way you can have this. You could try it on your own. I will be including some links where you can open up Jupyter Notebook on a web browser so you can try. But other than that, subscribe, hit the like button, and yeah, let's get started, start coding, and have some fun. Cool. So like I said, we're going to be using the Titanic dataset. We're going to cover some basic data science comprehension and related topics. This is typically geared, for at least from my experience, toward an interview question, answering some simple analysis from what I've had in the past. Just to give you some history of the dataset. So the Titanic were marked by class warfare, in which people were with first class tickets took all good spots on lifeboats. Others claim that the final hour were characterized by male chivalry, in which men valiantly gave up their positions in the boats and succumbed bravely to the depths of the Atlantic. So overall, in this data, we have survival rates by class and by sex. So let's figure out where there is evidence of these scenarios. So we're going to be using the Titanic _data.csv. We're going to start in a pandas data frame. We're going to be using information from p-class survival, which is survived, and gender of passengers, and some other things as well. We're going to be using the raw, and then we're going to be using clean, where we're going to be dropping some null values. With this project, or we're going to be using these libraries, pandas to do some analysis, NumPy to also do some more analysis, and then matplotlib we're going to be using for graphing. Like I said, we are going to be graphing stuff. Before we do begin, some more information. There are two claims: class warfare and male chivalry. So there are patterns that we see in the data. Class warfare occurred in the final hours, as we know. Some patterns that you can see, or that some people expect, is that members from the same class would have a higher survival rate. Another pattern is that there can be low survival rates if they were the ones outed by other classes. Another claim is that male chivalry was widespread during the final hours instead. What patterns would you expect to see if that was the case? So during the final hours, if male chivalry was widespread, then there would be more females who survived. Obviously correct. If class warfare was to happen, then male chivalry could still be present, or one can be present and the other cannot. So two events are not inclusive. So we're going to be doing this, reading in the data, then we're going to be removing empty rows. We're going to be answering these 3 questions, creating some functions for that. We're going to answer this question right here by plotting, and then we're going to be answering this question again, age versus surviving, and then just talk about what you can do next. But with that, let's start coding and start answering these awesome questions. Cool. So the first thing we're going to do is read in the data so we can use it. So we'll paste in the link. The link is provided up here. You can go to it and we'll see the Titanic data set. So now we want to read in the file. So we could do return pd.read csv and file name, and then we could do, what we want to do is call this raw, since we haven't cleaned it. So just raw data frame, how it is. So we're going to do read data and then pass in the file, and then we can look at it and see what we're dealing with, how it looks, using the pandas function .head. Oh, whoops, didn't do this one. Remember, always run your libraries first. Read date. Nope, that's wrong. Read data file, because we're passing in the URL. Oh my goodness. Okay, we're starting off not strong, but that's okay. Okay, so this is what we have so far. We have passenger ID, survived, P class, names, gender, age, parch, ticket, fare, cabin, embarked, and among other things. So what we want to do now is create a clean data set by removing rows that have missing values corresponding to survived P-class, age, or sex. So it's okay if other values are null, but we want to make sure that these ones don't have any. So what we could do next is, so we're passing in two parameters, the data frame, which is raw df, and the columns to be dropped. So what we could do is say return df dot drop and a, and then the subset is going to equal to the columns. So with that being said, we can call this new data frame clean df is equal to remove empty rows, and then we're passing in the raw df and the column names survived, P class, and sex. Cool. So now we can take a look at that. Clean df dot head, and we see that they're still very similar things, but we have it clean now. So the next thing we want to do is compute the fraction of survivors according to class and gender. So there are 3 passenger classes and 2 sexes in the data set. So we should report all 6 possible combinations. So before we begin that, we have this function right here. We're passing in the clean data frame. The class type is going to be either so we know that there's 3 classes. So there's class 1 male, class 1 female, class 2 male, and class 2 female, class 3 male, and class 3 female. And then we're going to pass in the sex, which is male or female. So what we can do to filter this out is say the following. We can do class is equal to df.lock, and then in here we're going to do df, and we're going to do sex is equal to the sex that we're passing in, and then we're going to do another parameter. Let me find right here, and so another again df, and we're going to do survived is greater than 0. Cool. And again we're going to do df p class is equal to class type, and then that's how we're going to filter out the rows. And then we're going to return the fraction of this. So we're going to do round length class divided by length of df.lock. And the reason we're going to do this again is because we're going to do df p class is equal to class type, and df survived is greater than 0. We want to make sure that we round to. Okay, so what we're saying here is we're going to find a class that is equal to the sex, and that's survived, and that's equal to the class type that we want. And then we're going to find the fraction of how many of those people in class divided by the class type and the ones that survived, and we're going to be rounding to 2. So now to help us do this, we're going to have this function called survivors helper, where we have the class types. Like I said, we have 1, 2, or 3, right? So we can create this 1, 2, 3. So we already know this, so we can hard put it in without having to look into the data frame. And then the sex we're going to do is equal to, we have only 2, so male or female. And then what we want to do is for class type in class types for sex in sex, and then what we want to do is print, just so we can see what's going on. We'll do this in an f string is class type, and then we'll do so like I said, we have class 1 male, class 1 female, class 2 male, class 2 female, and so on. So we'll be doing class type, and then we'll do sex, and then we'll do survivors. So this is the fraction, and then all we got to do is call in our function that we implemented on top, pass in the clean data frame from above, pass in the class type, and pass in the sex, and then in all this multiply it by 100 to give us a percent. And we'll just add this to be fancy, close our f string, and then outside of this print, so that way we are able to see what's going on. And then all we have to do is just call survivors helper. Cool. So we see class 1 male survivors 33%, class 1 female survivors 67%, class 2 male survivors 20%, class 2 female survivors 80%, class 3 male survivors 39%, and class 2 female or class 3 female survivors 61%. It seems pretty reasonable. Cool. So now we can move from this, and so what do we notice after we computing? So there should be a couple things that we do notice that you can say in your analysis when you think about it. So we can say that more females survived, or not survived, but are likely to survive. What else? We see that the highest chance for a male to survive is if you were in class 3, and if you were a female, the best class to survive would be in class 2. So we can see, we can say that for a male to survive, it would be better if you were in class 3. If you were a female, best chance to survive would be in class 2. All right, and another thing, what else do you notice? Woman, I can't spell. Woman in class 3 had a much higher, well, I don't know, class 3, it would be class 2. Class 2 have a higher chance of surviving. Cool. So that's what we noticed in this, and just to make it look better, that way we can see what we're talking about. Cool. So now after this, we want to plot some visuals of all the passenger ages. So we want to characterize the distribution of age. So we want to think about, is the data unimodal, bimodal, multimodal, symmetric, negatively skewed, positively skewed? And I'm sure you've heard of all of these in your class or in the workplace, of how do we characterize age when it's plotted. So to plot this, we're going to be using matplotlib. So first we want to characterize my bins. So this just says how many bins we want in the graph. So we just want to range 0 to 85 and then count by 5. So now we want to initialize our figure and axis. So we could do this by saying fig ax is equal to plt.subplots, and then fig size, what should we do? I think a regular good size is just 8x4. Cool. And now we want to so we're going to be using the data frame. So we're going to do a histogram, diff.hist. So this will plot a histogram on the column that is equal to age, And we're going to do the axis equal to ax that we initialized equal to ax that we initialized. What is going on? Ax. And then we're going to be doing bins is equal to my bins. So instead of doing bins out here, if you wanted, you could just do this in here as well, but just so we have cleaner code. And then we're going to do face color. What's a good color? We'll do blue. Oh my gosh, I can't type today. Okay. And now we're going to do, we can set the title for the axis and the overall plot. So we can just, I'll just copy this in here. Since this is just some extra stuff, you don't need this, but it's good to have. And now we can plot this. So all we got to do is say plot ages and then pass in clean df. So that loads. Cool. So this is our distribution. Cool. So we see that the graph is positively skewed. We see that the ages range from 0 to 80, which is really cool. And we see that the max is here in the 30 with over 100, or between 20 and 30, where we see over 100 people with ages like that. So we can also see that we see that the distribution of age is bimodal, since there are two peaks right here and right here. Okay, cool. So now the next thing is that we want to consider a passenger's age to the likelihood of surviving. So what this means is that we want to plot two density histograms on the same set of axes and then show the distribution of ages and passengers who survived. So we're going to be doing almost similar to what we did on top. We're going to be plotting everything in one graph, but we're going to be doing different colors just to see what this says. And I'm just going to copy and paste. It is a lot of code, and I'll explain it. Okay, so again, right here, this is just initializing the bins and the figure. So right here, what we're going to do first is we're going to filter out the survived equal to 1 on the column of age. That's what we're doing here. We're going to filter out the ones who didn't survive, also on the column of age, and then we're going to plot them together. Right here, we say that we're giving a legend, survived, and then dead. You don't have to name it that. You can name something else. And so this is what we see. So survived is in the darker color, and then dead is in the higher color. So we see that there was quite an amount of people dead. And then the distribution, we see it on the left on the y axis. So like I said, what this means is that we just show the distribution of ages and of the passengers of who survived and the distribution of passengers who did not survive. So the ones who are dead and are not alive. So cool. Those are just a couple questions that I went through in a data science interview. It was fun. I walked it through it with the interviewer. We just had a good chat back and forth, kind of like what me and you are doing right now. Just thinking out loud, plotting, answering, and coding how you would answer questions thrown at you. But for me, this is really fun. I think the next thing that you can do is implement machine learning algorithms. I know the Titanic dataset is a very cliche dataset to use, but I think it's always good to start. Sometimes you don't have to go out there and use crazy amount of datasets when you're first starting off. This is geared towards more of a beginner project if you want to continue it using machine learning, but still great practice. You could do more in-depth data science analysis, so come up with more questions and answer those, and then exploratory data analysis. There's different plots you can do. Like I said, there's a lot of columns, a lot of different features that are associated with the Titanic dataset. So definitely do that. Maybe there might be some people with the same name that are more likely to survive, or same class, age distribution fair and whatnot. So definitely keep that into account. But yeah, that's it for this interview question tutorial. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned some stuff. Like I said, it's good to be back. I had fun being out for a little bit, but if you have any questions, if you want to see more of this, definitely comment and I'll read them. Message me on Twitter or send me an email as you wish. Follow the GitHub. again so you can see this, try it on your own. Maybe you'll figure out a different way to answer these questions that's more efficient. And yeah, that's it. I hope you all have a good day or night wherever you're watching. Like, subscribe, comment. I'll see you all next time.